SCHD, or the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF, is an exchange-traded fund that seeks to track the performance of high dividend-yielding U.S. companies, and dividend growth investors like myself just cannot get enough of this fund. Funds like SCHD are designed to track an underlying index, which means that they invest in a basket of stocks that meet a specific criteria. And now what's also important about this is that over time, criteria is going to change, which means the fund is going to be made up of different companies at different times throughout the years. Now, once SCHD or any ETF out there changes around the stocks that make up of it, it's called Reconstitution. The ETF Reconstitution refers to the process of periodically adjusting the composition of the underlying index to reflect changes in the market or to maintain the index's desired characteristics. When this reconstitution occurs, it basically involves in removal and addition of several stocks from the ETF's underlying index. Now, during this process, the index provider evaluates the performance of the companies in the index and determines whether they meet the index's criteria. Now, some funds do this actually automatically, like algorithmically, and then other funds actually have managers that do this. If a company no longer meets the criteria, though, it may be removed from the index and replaced with another company that does meet the criteria. So another thing that's really cool about investing into an ETF like SCHD, in my opinion, is that the fund is going to consistently grow and consistently be molded into what hopefully would be the best fund possible. And again, whichever stocks actually make the cut are going to have to meet a certain criteria. The reconstitution process can have implications for investors in SCHD, as changes in the underlying index can impact the ETF's performance and risk profile, and also can in theory change the dividend outputs. So let's say there's certain companies that no longer meet the criteria that were inside of SCHD, and stay tuned because we are going to go through the new companies that did make the cut and are also no longer in SCHD. But if there were to be some companies, let's just say, that were to have gotten cut during this process, that means that in theory, SCHD's dividend could be affected. But in general, since SCHD tracks high quality, high yielding dividend paying companies, SCHD will still aim to provide investors with exposure to potentially attractive sources of income and, of course, long-term dividend growth potential. So this was posted on r/dividends on Reddit just a few hours ago. This is the first time I've seen this actually, so we're going to go through it together, but it says what's out and what's in from SCHD as of 2023, update as well as their parent percentages, allocations. The biggest member out is IBM. Lots of new additions including abbvie and UPS and CVX. So these are all the companies that are no longer in SCHD as of the last reconstitution. So we have IBM, which was a pretty decent size of SCHD and no longer meets the criteria. IBM is out. We have CMI, PRU, GPC, we have HIG, OMC, CINF, PFG, FHN, we have BEN, WBS, HAS, JEF, FLO, NSP, EVR, FHI, MGRC, SYBT, EIG, HNI, and SAFT, MCY, and PETS. Those are all the dividend companies that are now no longer inside of SCHD as of this time. Let's go ahead and look at some of the companies that did make it into SCHD, and there's actually some pretty good ones in this list if you ask me. So now moving forward, we have abbvie, which is abbvie. They're now 4.2 more or less weight. With UPS, another big position which I actually hold separately than SCHD, and I love it. CBX, BX, we have Ford, we have CTRA, DRI, PKG, RHI, WSM. There's also AAP, HUN, WEN, CRI, CBRL, MDC, APAM, OFG, KFRC, CWENA, STCHAFC, and GES, EBF, and CPF. So there we have it, guys. For those of you out there that are investors in SCHD, this is a pretty important list to sort of take a look at and see what names you're excited about and maybe names you're bummed out about leaving SCHD. Overall, moving forward, if you're thinking what I'm thinking, it's going to be very exciting to see what the future dividend payouts are when it comes to SCHD. Now, some of the companies that have been cut from SCHD were actually pretty high dividend yielders. Companies like IBM, companies like BEN, there's other companies in there that in theory maybe could slow down the dividend growth for SCHD, but also in the new companies that were added, there's lots of names like abbvie and even UPS that have been growing their dividends very, very healthily in the last few quarters. Understanding when and why ETFs go through this process is especially important. This is obviously because changing around some of these different names, some of these different stocks could obviously affect the performance of the overall ETF, the risk management, and of course the dividend yield. But I want you guys to comment down below and tell me, are you happy with these new names in and outs? And let me know what you think about the future dividend size for SCHD. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like in the video and subscribe for more. Thanks as always, and I'll see you in the next one.